Hello and welcome. My name is Gayatri Sundarajan and we're here at the Relay for Life on June 11, 2016. The energy here is amazing and it's practically 11 o'clock. We've talked to many people today and we've sensed a common theme of people who have lost loved ones but are here to remember their memory and are here to celebrate what they stood for. So we're going to be talking to some of them and seeing what the Relay for Life is really about and what people here are standing for.
My name is Nat Heitman.
I'm Ava.
Tatiana.
I'm Nick.
My name is Grace.
My name is Clara.
I'm Marina.
I'm Neela.
My name is Jack Biondi.
Anastasia Galopoulos.
Trying to help out this great cause. But aside from that, it's also just a lot of fun to be out here with everybody. Like everybody's playing games on the field or just like at their tent. You can go hang around with anybody really and just have a fun time playing games.
There's like a lot of people like throwing around footballs or frisbees around. Every minute of it is pretty good. Like even if you're just sitting and like eating, it's like fun to be here.
We've raised about $600 out of our $1,000 goal.
We raised as a team over $1,000.
I've raised like around 3,000, I think now. I have like about 400.
350 to 400. I'm really proud of everyone who's come through and donated, so I'd like to give a big thank you to them as well.
Why do I do a relay?
For my uncle who died from cancer. I never got to meet him, so I walked to honor him.
My dad is a cancer survivor, and my grandmother died of cancer.
Both my grandparents have had cancer as well, like multiple times. My uncle currently has cancer, and then my aunt's mom just got cancer.
My mom's a cancer survivor this year, and both my grandparents survived cancer as well. And Nick's a cancer survivor.
Recently, my uncle was diagnosed with colon cancer. It was difficult for me because I'm very close with him. This year, I really wanted to do relay for him. My favorite part, honestly, last year would probably be the Luminaria ceremony as well. That's always a good way to remember people.
The Luminaria ceremony. Like speak.
And yeah, when people speak, it's like sad, except it's really like, that's like the part that's actually like emotional and like you realize why you're here.
And then everyone actually like comes together physically.
Good evening and welcome to the Luminaria ceremony, which is an opportunity to remember the journey our survivors have taken and also serves as a memorial for loved ones lost. It is a special time for all of us. As we marvel in the light of Luminaria as a community, we remember lives and memories carrying together the light of life. At this time, I would like to welcome the Malatesta family up, where Jennifer Goodwin will be speaking.
Is this live? Oh, it is. A couple weeks ago, Julie had texted me and asked me if I would come and speak about what it's like to be a caregiver for someone with cancer. So that's what I'm doing tonight, so bear with me. You all know how raw this is, so there may be a few tears here. Being the caregiver for a person with stage 4 cancer is a full-time job. Actually, it's many, many jobs. When Catherine was diagnosed with epithelioid sarcoma, besides confronting the sheer horror of a 16-year-old and my child being diagnosed with cancer, we had to figure out what type of cancer we were dealing with. I mean, who's ever heard of epithelioid sarcoma? Greg and I had to do lots and lots of research. We visited 2 elite world-class cancer centers to determine who was going to take care of Catherine. We had to manage her emotional well-being as well as the physical aspects of Catherine's cancer. You see, Catherine's tumor caused excruciating pain. Pain management became nearly a full-time job for us. During the first 3 weeks, we were in and out of Boston nearly every day so that Catherine could undergo a battery of very difficult tests, biopsies, x-rays, 5-hour MRIs, PET scans, radiation measurements, etc. And Catherine underwent all of these tests while she was trying to go to school. The day after Christmas in 2014, Catherine had surgery to implant a port. And a port is a device that's surgically implanted under the skin so that the medicine can be delivered quicker and so that blood draws could be done without having to always insert an IV. She also began on that day very intensive chemotherapy treatment. At the beginning, Catherine stayed in the hospital for her chemotherapy infusions, and then remained in the hospital for a few days thereafter to work through the debilitating after effects. As her primary caregiver, I stayed in the hospital every day and night with Catherine. I was her mouthpiece, her advocate, her cheerleader, her gopher, her soundboard, her punching bag, her hand holder, her entertainment, and her mother. In between hospital stays at home, we had to adjust to the new Catherine. The very physical, loud, larger-than-life Catherine was replaced by the frail, quiet, introspective Catherine. The pain was so great that Catherine was unable to use her left arm. I had to dress and undress Catherine head to toe. After a few weeks of chemotherapy, Catherine's hair began to fall out. Handling the emotional impact of losing one's hair at age 16 was so difficult. We supported Catherine through this challenge. I became a wig specialist who, in between all the hospital stays and appointments, we visited Boston often so that they could see Catherine's true hair color before her hair fell out. And we had to pick out a wig and have it dyed to match her hair color. My husband, Greg, shouldered much of the responsibilities of keeping the boys' lives as normal as possible. He was working full-time, cooking, shopping, chauffeuring, coaching, and being an emotional rock for both Catherine and I. Greg became an insurance guru. Making sure the mountain of medical bills that Catherine racked up were being paid was a monumental task. Staying on top of all the medical options for Catherine was daunting. He did an incredible job. In the middle of one of the worst winters on record, we had to drive to Dana-Farber every week for appointments and visits that would often last 10 hours. Catherine's infusions were so grueling, and she was left so exhausted and sick that at the end of the day I would have to push her out in a wheelchair and load her into the car. When we arrived home, I would have to walk her into the house and literally fold her into bed. She would stay in bed for the next 24 hours, trying to sleep off the after effects of the intense chemotherapy. Catherine lost 30 pounds. We would have to force her to eat. I remember her crying to me one day. She said, "I used to love to eat, and now I hate to eat." And anyone who knows Catherine well knows that she had to have been pretty sick to not want to eat. For 38 straight business days, we drove into Brigham and Women's for radiation therapy. Catherine would have to lie still on a table in an awkward position for 20 minutes while radiation rays beamed into her tumor. Radiation left her weak and tired. Some days Catherine would have chemotherapy and radiation. And I recall those drives into Boston so fondly. We would sing in the car to all the latest songs on the radio. In particular, I remember Rachel Platten's fight song. I had hoped that that would be Catherine's anthem when she was healed. Catherine and I would talk about the news of the day. We would talk about life. Throughout all this time, I was also driving Catherine back and forth to school. She'd go to AHS at 7 a.m. for madrigals. I'd pick her up at 8. We would drive into Boston. I would bring her home to rest for a little while. I would bring her back to school around 12:30 and then pick her up again at 2:30. As Catherine grew sicker, we spent all of our time in Children's Hospital. We lived on the oncology floor for many weeks, and eventually we moved to the intensive care unit where Catherine died. Living in the hospital for 3 months isn't like anything I could ever explain. Reality is suspended. It's hard to imagine that normal life carries on outside. And being a patient on the oncology floor is like staying at the Ritz-Carlton versus the intensive care unit. We grew to know Catherine's nurses and doctors very well. Everyone loved Catherine. Everyone knew she wanted to get to prom. Because fluid was accumulating in Catherine's lungs, she had chest tube drains surgically implanted on both sides. She could hardly move, let alone get out of bed. Her back began to ache from being in bed so much. During those days, I advocated strongly for Catherine. I watched everything and everyone like a hawk. I began to truly learn the language of medicine. And again, I'll look back on some of our stay at Children's very fondly. Catherine and I were like roommates. We stayed up late watching movies together. We chatted a lot during the day. We laughed when we could. It was the time I didn't get so much of before her cancer diagnosis. In recent years, Catherine's life was so very busy, and I never got a lot of quality one-on-one time. Living on the busiest, most important pediatric intensive care units in the world and watching my child die was the most intense and excruciating experience I have ever had. I lived every day in sheer terror. I lived every day afraid of the news that would be delivered to me at any moment. Catherine's condition deteriorated so rapidly. Our heads were spinning. New doctors, residents, and fellows were coming on board to care for Catherine, but who were unfamiliar with her case. Mistakes were being made all around us. Despite our deep despair, we had to be vigilant. We had to be hopeful and optimistic for Catherine. Catherine had more tubes, drips, drains, and lines coming out of her that I couldn't even hug her. But I could kiss her, hold her hand, talk to her, read to her, and play her music. At the end of Catherine's life, while in the ICU, when we were having end-of-life discussions, Greg and I were asked to think about Catherine and to make decisions for her as her caregiver and not as her parents. I think it was one of the most difficult questions anyone ever asked of us. In my mind, I play back our responses all the time, but I know Catherine would be so very proud of us, and we're so very proud of her. Thank you.
Everyone should do it because it's not only a great time, but it's awesome. It's going to help people. So